welcome to the Design at Columbia Session 1 Project Showcase and Career Panel. It seems crazy that it's been, 6 weeks, even 8 weeks since we had like the official Design at Columbia kickoff, and 6 weeks since we kicked off Session 1. And I'm so excited for the Project Showcase, and just to hear from all of you guys like about the amazing, incredible work that you've done. Most students, I think I can say, did not know what a design sprint was before this summer, and I think hopefully you'll be as amazed as I was seeing all of these slides that we're about to see, with just the exceptional level of work that's been put in. Teams have been collaborating across time zones, and they've all come up with some really amazing design solutions to some very important problems, especially in the midst of a pandemic. But I am not going to chat for too long. I actually just want to get stuck in and start seeing the projects that we have showcased today. So I'll hand it off straight away to SPA-mates. Clelia, Lacey, and Taylor, take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Lacey. Clelia and Taylor couldn't be here today, so I'm just going to be handling it. But yeah, we're SPA-mate, and we started with the question, or how might we connect collegiate athletes with equally skilled training partners for sports-specific workouts? Taylor and I were athletes at Columbia, and Clelia was just a supportive friend, and we knew this was an issue, so we were curious about, figuring out some kind of design solution. So you can go next slide. So in understanding our competitor landscape, that was the first thing. We didn't actually think at first we had any competitors because there was just nothing out there. So the biggest competitor we saw was personal networks, which was just reaching out to people you knew, whether that was through text messages or Instagram DMs or phone calls or having coaches reach out. It was really just not centralized, not standardized, and we saw that there an opportunity to formalize that into something. The other three were kind of interesting. Facebook community, I feel like that's anything with some kind of event planning thing. Facebook can be used for virtually anything. Playoff is an athlete dating app, which is connecting athletes in a very different way, but we saw some of their underlining design concepts could be translated into some of the stuff that we were doing, so we decided to include them. And TaskRabbit came from Clelia, which was a really interesting one because I never thought of it, but some of the stuff where combining people for like-minded things, so if you need some kind of task done, that was really out of the box, but we threw that in there because, again, our competitor landscape was very we knew that this is a good opportunity, though, for some kind of design solution. So, yeah, next slide. And then, so again, in understanding our user, then we went into user research to more deeply understand the problem space. We did a simple Google form, the first 6 questions, and we sent them to our athlete communities and our personal networks. And the first 6 questions were just demographic to get a sense of who the user was that was responding to our survey. And the last 3 questions really got into the nitty-gritty and helped us really understand and then go on to define the problem space. So the first question, if you could go to the next slide, I kind of yeah. So how do you find? And the key thing was finding training partners, because that seemed to be the key problem. The biggest 2 that came out were word of mouth and former teammates, which we assumed was the case, but this just confirmed it. The last 2 I added in, throwing it into a wall, I thought was kind of funny because that is something a lot of people do when they're alone. It's a classic individual training, and then paying for a local trainer was another thing. And our second question, any difficulties, this was going to really help us figure out what to design. And once we go into our prototype, you can see how some of these features came out. So the difficulties were the same competitive level, same schedule, in the right proximity, access to facilities, and then position-specific drilling partners, which was the one that we really wanted to core in on because it's hard to find these people. So these were the things that turned into features. So this difficulties really helped enlighten our design. And then next slide. And then the solutions, because we were like, oh, maybe someone will have a solution for us, so we won't have to think that much about it. An app was the big one, coach, pooling local talent, and then snap maps, which we didn't get to design out, but we thought some kind of iteration of snap maps could be cool. So this was our user research and understanding. And then when we got into defining, so this is our user journey. We picked Devin Rose. We made up this character completely. And this really helped us kind of figure out, help us figure out from search, discovery, train, and the next session, really how to pull any opportunities out of here. And excuse me for the spell typos all over this. It was a long night. And then next we went into archetypes, which we kind of picked out baseball, basketball, and soccer. And through this exercise, we figured out a lot of the frustrations and motivations and engagement styles, which again helped us figure out what to design and just really think about, how people are engaging with this app and all that. And then next, I think, is the sketching. Yeah, sketching was my least favorite part. As you can see, I'm not very artistically inclined. The Crazy 8 was a great exercise for our group because originally we were very gung-ho on the app thing. And I think it was during the MVP session where we learned about the minimal viable product. I think that was what it was. But we were like, oh, there could be something as easy as or something as easy as a community of micro-influencers and their networks and reaching out to people. So the sketching was really interesting for us. But in the end, we ended up going with the flashy app because we just wanted to try out our Figma skills. And I think that's on the next slide, the prototype. Yeah, so this is our quick prototype we came up with. It's not great and it's not complete, but we had a lot of fun designing it out and really getting to learn Figma. Oh, that's my timer to make sure I'm honest with my time. I guess that's my 5 minutes, but yeah, so we had a lot of fun doing this and this is our final project. So yeah.
Amazing. I have about 30 seconds left on my timer. Would you like me to play the YouTube video?
Yeah, sure. I could just, I don't know.
Here we go.
Okay, cool.
I'll play like the first.
Yeah. The first part is just like the login, creating a profile, which was fun because I didn't really even think of this. And I think I think that's a plugin. So I was playing around with plugins for like 2 days trying to figure out all that. But this was the core of it, trying to figure that out. And this design went through a couple iterations. I don't even love this design, but it's something to present. And then we figured out, we just added in the by to filter out how your spar mate would then come up. So if you want to do it by level of play or closest to you. I was having some issues with this. And then the bio, this is all we got for right now, but this is kind of the ideas we were going with: availability, where you are, and then being able to message. So yeah, that's SparMate.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we'll be sending out these slides afterwards. So if anyone doesn't get to present, every single detail of their slide or show everything, you're always able to go back and watch the video or just wander through the slides on your own. But next I'm going to be welcoming Nikita.
Hey everyone, I'm Nikita. I'm a sophomore in C studying mechanical engineering, and this is a college application mentoring program that I designed during the sprint. Next slide. So I started with a vague how might we. It just asked, why isn't there an easy way that we could gather what we all learned during the application process and pass it down? Next. And so these are some of the programs out there with a similar goal. Matriculate is kind of the closest to the current idea. It involves college student to high school student mentoring, but it is restricted to certain students. College Line discusses all the components of the application, but it involves older mentors. And there are career centers that have personal help when you go, but at least for my school, it was 200 students per mentor. And Khan Academy, I like the idea of expanding to transfer and homeschool students in the future, but it wasn't very personalized. Next. In my user research, I found that rising undergrads thought that time management and finding nuances about schools was important. But those who were about to go through the process seemed to be worried about the overwhelming information and narrowing down schools. And I also spoke with the public school county that I graduated from and talked about the possibility of partnering with them, but they had too many restrictions for where we could recruit mentors, and that doesn't really cater to what we found that the mentees need. So from the interviews, I learned that the 1-to-1 ratio of mentors to mentees was valued a lot, and undergraduate students as mentors was best just for comfortability and a realistic perspective. Next. At this stage, I update, I think you skipped a slide. Yeah, at this stage, I updated the how might we. I wanted to give reliable, accessible, personalized, and cheap guidance in the form of college mentors, and do it safely and virtually and during the pandemic, and streamline the process, because in interviewing rising seniors and undergraduates, I found that a lot of people reached out to college students in the middle or the end of the process anyway to help make decisions of where to apply and accept. So this was my solution sketch. It was an app idea with mentee-mentor applications, a timeline, communications, resources tab, progress, feedback, to-do list, and it was all supposed to be shareable with your mentor. And then I even started designing this on Figma when I asked myself, why do I even need an app or website? I realized I could use Google Form for the application section, Slack for any communication, and a shared Google Drive for all the materials I need to share. So instead, I made this as a prototype. Both parties would fill out the form, we review their responses and vet the mentors, and then we pair, and students can even fill out the form again if they would like to switch mentors based on changing priorities. So in the first part of the summer, I gathered 16 mentor and mentee pairs, created a Slack community, and gave out materials and application guide based on research. Most pairs have had one mentor checkup, but we plan to continue those, as well as hold workshops and definitely ask for feedback. So the user stories I'm testing is the content and content and structure of the workshops, one-to-one pairing, timeliness and content of the materials we're giving out, and how we pair students. So we got some very early feedback from two of our mentees. The problem areas were the idea of changing mentors, which seemed like a miscommunication because they thought that this was in the case that they didn't like their mentors and not because their priorities had narrowed. And also another problem area was the importance we placed on socioeconomic background when we paired. So phase 2 and generally the rest of this first mentoring program is getting feedback, changing materials, timeline, how we do our workshop, and adding features. And after that, we plan to iterate and add pairs as things start to fall into place. So in order to market all of this, I started with a Wix site and realized that was very expensive. So I used some prior HTML and CSS experience and fiddled a little with a Bootstrap template and used the Wix site as the end goal. And I ended up with this website. So definitely check it out and spread the word.
Oh, thank you very much, Nikita. That was amazing. Great. Okay, next, Aarti.
Sweet. So this is Software Store, the whole process, idea, and the product. Next slide. So first of all, my name's Aarti Krishna. I'm a rising freshman at SEA, so hopefully this will be my first year at Columbia. I started learning about UI UX design about 2 years ago, but this is my first time going through the whole design process from start to finish, so it was definitely a really good experience. Next slide. So let's face it, there's a lot of software out there. Next slide. From categories like tax filing, security and antivirus, office suites, there are tons of software out on the market, many of which the general consumer doesn't really know about. I definitely, when I was doing my research, didn't hear about half of these. Oh wait, next slide. So I conducted user interviews with a whole bunch of people, students, employees, designers, parents, and most of the time, many of them just basically said it was very hard to find better priced software. And so most of the time they just stuck to whatever was industry standard, like Microsoft or Google Slides. And it was regardless of the price or features, and they just found it hard to go searching for all of them on the internet. Next slide. So ultimately, from the research and user interviews, I decided to make an app that works as a concise and easy to understand database for software, especially for tax software, since that area is super confusing to begin with. So my how might we statement was, how might we help narrow down the process of finding the best softwares for any tax filer? So we came up with software sort, which was bringing all the software into one easy to find place to search for, learn, choose, and rate them. Next slide. So as I was sketching out ideas for this, I definitely wanted it to be an app because this was software related. So it was, what better way to do it than through an app? And so as I was doing it, I kind of kept in mind of the pain points, which was to keep all the software in one place, because it wasn't on one place originally, and then to keep the suggestions to a minimum so that way it's not distracting, and then keep a place for features, that way users didn't have to search for tutorials on YouTube or Google and spend hours trying to find the right one. Next slide. So for prototyping, I split it up into 3 groups. The first one was home and search. So the home screen is personalized to the user. If you have an account, you'll be able to save to your list, and so your list will come up, and then recommended and need help suggestions will come up based on what you've seen. And then search can be accessed from anywhere throughout the app and includes a full database, so you can search through software, tutorials, features, reviews, etc. Next slide. And then the software library houses all of the softwares currently in the database, usually sorted by brand or by company. That's just there for you to browse. And then anytime you click on a specific software, it includes an overview, like for description, rating, a button to view pricing, if applicable, features, recommended tutorials, and then at the very bottom, other suggested software. Next slide. And then finally, users can also view and create reviews for any sort of product. That way that they can see how other users have experience with that product, and they can also contribute to those ratings as well. Next slide. So having a prototype's great, but you can't really do anything about it unless you get some feedback from your users. So I conducted user testing. And for these tests, I gave users 6 tasks to complete and rated their completion on as easy, okay, or difficult for every task. So most of the problems happened through reviews. Next slide. And so after all the tasks, I asked for users for any final thoughts or suggestions, and they indicated that like the strengths of the app included like the condensed information, so it was easy to skim and figure out what the software was about, and then the easy access tutorials, but navigation and price viewing still had some kinks and needed improvement. Next slide. So the key takeaways were that navigation needed more clarification through either labels or onboarding. Pricing needed to be shown effectively, especially in the cases of subscriptions and softwares with set prices. And then reviews needed to be more intuitive, both mainly in creating reviews. So adding options for video, and then some kinks in actually writing it out, like I did dragging instead of clicking for star ratings. Next slide. So after getting all this feedback, we have to do, I went into reiteration. So it's back to the drawing board basically. So I did 2 different redesigns. So the software description originally was a little harder to read and like comprehend what was on it. So I redesigned it so it was clear. And then the feature chips were made a little more interactive, with the intention of users being able to click on and search later on by feature, straight from any sort of software description. So they didn't have to search just by feature. And then navigation was changed for the software library and feature help, just to be more clear for users to navigate around the app. Next slide. So if you want to see more, you can follow the link, play around with the prototype. And if you have any questions or concerns or feedback, you can Slack me at Arthi Krishna, or email me at arthi.krishna@columbia.edu. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Arthi. And we'll be Moving on to the Intercampus Shuttle with Nicholas, Guillermina, and Stacy.
Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Nicholas Acosta, and along with my group members Guillermina Peragalo and Stacy Tao, we have worked over the past couple of weeks on the Intercampus Shuttle redesign project. Next slide, please. To begin, we have to discuss the current platforms with the Intercampus Shuttle, those being the Columbia Transportation website and the Passio Go app. While the Intercampus Shuttle is an amazing service, there are significant shortcomings that prevent it from being more frequently used by members of our Columbia community. Thus, it's important to have a platform that consolidates information about the shuttle service so riders can have an easy and efficient commute. To have a better understanding of how riders felt about these platforms, we interviewed a variety of people to create a problem space to help guide our design process. We found that most users utilized the app and website to get their information about the shuttle service, since the schedule was not offered on the app. Those interviewed also expressed that the app didn't provide notifications or any alterations to the service, and also provided inaccurate arrival times, thus making the shuttle service an unfavorable transportation option to those commuting. Next slide, please. So using these interviews, we set out to design an app that can make the shuttle service easy to understand and use. We focus on providing information about delays and changes to the shuttle service, a navigation feature that can guide riders to the destination, and accurate arrival times, so waiting at a shuttle stop is minimized.
Yeah, so as Nico mentioned, based on our user interviews, we decided to create a new prototype for the app to allow for customized on-the-go use. The app features 4 main screens, which are the home, navigation, schedule, and notification screens. The first frame shown here is a home screen where riders can add shortcuts to favorite routes and stops for easy access. For example, the second screen shown here displays upcoming buses at the Nash building so that riders know when to go to the stop and they don't have to wait. The third screen shows the navigation features where riders can set their origin and destination to view different shuttle routes available to them. Pictures of the stops are provided to allow users to easily identify where to get on and off the shuttle. The shuttle capacity is also displayed to let users know whether an upcoming bus will be available to them. This is especially important now that the shuttles have reduced capacity by 50% to allow for social distancing. Once the riders on the shuttle, they can update bus capacity to let others know how full the buses are, and they can also share their location with us to increase the accuracy of our scheduling system. Additionally, they can submit service requests and updates to notify other riders about service irregularities. The last screen shown here allows, the last screen shows how users can set custom notifications for specific routes and stops. And then they will be able to receive push notifications regarding shuttle service updates, including delays or any other changes in service. And if you'd like to browse the rest of our prototype, you can do so at the tiny URL link shown here.
So last week, we conducted user testing with people who have prior background using the Columbia shuttle system. We gave them the hypothetical scenario of commuting from the Morningside campus to Columbia Medical Center and asked them to walk us through their thought process of using the app prototype. Our current prototype that Guille just previewed is a newer iteration based on the feedback that we received from these users. And you can see a summative screenshot of our process here. Some key insights that we received during user testing includes positive feedback on our navigation and push notification features, as well as opportunity areas in improving Columbia's existing timetable design and considering color accessibility in our Google Maps. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. Moving forward, we'd like to continue targeted user testing to make sure we are able to receive feedback representative of all stakeholders in the app, including students, researchers, and facility workers, community members, riders with disability, and Columbia Transportation. We want to expand our accessibility testing, continue to iterate on our designs, continue our communication with Columbia Transportation and their contractors to obtain GPS data. And eventually we hope to roll out a minimum viable product app running on actual code. Next slide, please. Coming into this, our team had a very modest design background, and each of us have learned so much through this opportunity. So
Thank you guys so much for your amazing support and resources in these past 6 weeks. Thank you.
I think you cut out a little bit there, but thank you so much for that amazing presentation. And we are going to move on to the next team.
Hi, so for our Design at Columbia project, we saw a need and opportunity for an office hours redesign. However, we didn't want to just try to create an app for office hours. We want to deconstruct office hours to figure out what aspects of it are the most and least useful. So therefore, while this research was prompted by the transformation of office hours because of COVID-19, our findings apply to both online and in-person office hours. Next slide, please. So we surveyed 30 students, TAs, and professors to discover their pain points. And we noticed that the most salient office hour grievances were from computer science students. And so we decided to narrow down the focus of our project to redesigning for STEM classes. So this is how STEM students describe their worst office hours experiences. Our key takeaways are a lack of time management and long waits, overcrowding and disorganization in the TA room, and difficulty for quieter students to get help. Next slide, please.
And here's how STEM students describe their best office hours experiences. So our key takeaways are that office hours provide a time and space to collaborate and spend time with other students. It's rewarding to meet people in the same class and solve homework problems together. Office hours seem to be the most successful when students came in with a clear objective and their objective was met with conceptual explanations and visual aids. And students liked when they were able to schedule an appointment ahead of time so that less time is wasted waiting around or trying to get a question asked. Next.
So from our surveys, we identified 4 different archetypes of students who attend office hours. These students have different goals, and they require different amounts of privacy during office hours. These different types of students then prompted us to create our main feature, a queue. Next, please.
We also identified 2 types of students who don't usually go to office hours, even though they expressed in our surveys that they would like to attend more often. And these students are the ones who feel very underprepared or feel very overprepared. And they feel that the current model of office hours doesn't really allow them to achieve their goals. Next. So based on our surveys and interviews, we came up with the following statement of our goals for our prototype. And we phrased it as how might we questions. So how might we reduce physical wait times, make office hours more approachable, increase opportunities for individual help, encourage collaborative learning, and find a balance between spontaneity and goal setting. Next.
So when the user first opens the app, the first thing they see is a screen with all of their upcoming office hours in one place, and that's shown in screen A. So when you tap the arrow to the right of the scheduled office hours period, you see screen B, which introduces the concept of the office hours queue. To reduce physical wait times and better organize TA help rooms, we came up with the concept of a virtual queue that opens shortly before office hours begins, which students can then join instead of physically waiting around in the help room. The queue basically strikes a balance between the spontaneity of first come, first serve office hours and the orderliness of appointment-based office hours that students surveyed said that they liked. So in all of these screens, and especially in screen C, you can see that tags are being used in all of these screens. And the tags are basically a way for students to indicate the type of question or topic that they're coming to office hours with, which then encourages students to define their goals ahead of time and also prepares TAs for the meeting. Next slide, please.
Other topics in the queue are visible, so if other students have questions on the same topic as you, you can select their slots in the queue and either create a conversation with them or simply request to merge your time slots, which is shown in screen E. You can think of this as if you had gone to office hours in person, seen that all of the TAs are busy, and congregated with the other students waiting for help on the same question the P said. With the ability to merge time slots or create conversations, we retain the spontaneous collaboration and socializing that happens in office hours while still reducing in-person wait times. Next.
And in screens G and H, you can see here the conversation overviews with other students. So G is all of your conversations, and H is an example of what a specific conversation might look like. And in screen F, we also have a generalized notification center so that TAs and professors can notify students about things like cancellations or room changes, which from our surveys, we found that people often missed in Canvas and Piazza, and this would be a huge improvement over the current experience.
Last thing, so our next step would be to survey more professors to get a better idea of how to tailor the TA/professor view on the app. And then we're also thinking of either growing this into a desktop version if classes were to be online in the fall, or if they are in person, then we believe that a mobile version with tap notifications would be the best. So far, we have a small demo on Figma that you guys can look at through the QR code. The QR code, sorry.
Thank you.
Amazing, thank you so much. I think Lydia and Mark are particularly excited about this.
Yeah, you've got 2 customers lined up.
Great, thank you so much, team. Next, we've got green glasses.
All right, hi everyone, we'll be doing a project overview for green glasses. I'm Sandy.
And I'm Nicole.
Next. So our design is a web extension that promotes sustainable online shopping, and we want to start by showing you some inspirations of our original idea. An average American bought 12 pieces of clothing each year in the 1980s. However, an average American buys 68 pieces of clothing each year right now, and half of them are worn 3 times or less. Therefore, educating and promoting sustainable shopping behaviors have never been so important.
However, the average customer is one with little to no knowledge on sustainable fashion, and so our focus group is on those that have an interest to shop more sustainably, but do not want to spend too much time learning how to. Next slide. Okay, so we consolidated our competitor analysis to these 3 businesses. Honey is one of them that does not focus on sustainable fashion. However, it is a web extension that seamlessly provides online coupons when a user is visiting an online store. Our next competitor that we focus on is Good On You. Good On You is a website where users can search the sustainability rating of any given retail store, and they provide a rating along with detailed and complex explanations. And then there's Healthiest, and Healthiest provides a web extension that shows users sustainable alternative products when shopping only within Amazon.com. Next slide. So while Good On You provides detailed information on sustainability rating of stores, it's mostly beneficial to the consumers who are already educated in sustainability. In addition, it's time-consuming for a user to have to jump between Good On You and the store they're currently shopping at in order to learn if they're shopping sustainably. So our first idea was to create a label scanner so that users can use their phone to scan a label as they go shopping and understand if the item that they're currently looking at is sustainable. While this idea would allow them to learn about each item's sustainability rating, it would slow down their trips to the store. Thus, it would only attract those users who are really motivated to learn about sustainability. So that led us to our next idea, Green Glasses. Green Glasses provides a web extension in which users can seamlessly learn about an item's sustainability rating while shopping online, making the process fast and easy. Next.
All right, so here is a brief overview of the first iteration, our prototype. On the left, we see the highlighted yellow box, which means this product has medium sustainability rating. And when clicking onto the green glasses on the bottom left, users can then learn more about the fabrics and explore alternative options. Next. And with some user feedback, we were building our second prototype. We have added an onboarding pop-up box to help new users. We had made the color frames more obvious and distinctive. We had also refined the learn more options with more discoverability and more specific rating. And finally, our alternative options are more discreet and less intruding. So here is the video demonstrating our second prototype. As we can see, the pop-up box is on the upper left, and when you hover over, it shows you the color frame, and when you click onto the glasses, it then gives you specific ratings, alternative options, and also the link to our website. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. We will actually be skipping over this one and the next slide for user testing. They're just here to show you the depths of our user testing results. However, we will condense and summarize the results for you in the pie chart form. So currently, our users think they can learn intuitively because the simplistic information requires very minimal effort to learn. They also think that they can learn intuitively as it provides a one-stop learning experience, so it's very convenient. And in helping users to make more conscious decisions, the feedback shows that some users still require more detailed information in order to make a more informed decision. And on the bottom are some examples of future features, and user preferences. So the personalized suggestion can get users to make more adapted, more optimal decisions, and the curated and interactive website will allow users to further understand their own sustainability pattern and also learn more about our design. Next.
So our group definitely wants to keep working on this moving forward. And so our next steps are to keep iterating through our prototype, conduct user testing, improve the UI, receive input from sustainability experts so we can then create reliable ratings, and obviously start building our web extension. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And next we'll have CU Shuttle's team.
Okay. So hi, my name is Tamana, and I worked on redesigning the shuttle bus system with Mariek and John. So next slide. Oh, yeah. Our redefined how might we statement was how might we create an all-in-one transportation tool that optimizes users' travel experiences on Columbia shuttle buses. So one of the specific ways we tried to accomplish this was by providing personalized trip planning, because it was a feature that was available on the Columbia Transportation website, but it wasn't on the existing shuttle app called Paseo Go. And our focus was mainly on streamlining the flow of information and features between Columbia Transportation's website and its shuttle app. Next slide. Yeah. We decided to tackle this project because it was something that we could personally connect with, being students at Barnard and Columbia. The shuttle service system is a free transportation medium, but it also seems pretty ambiguous. Between the three of us, we didn't have any experiences with using the shuttle system, so we relied heavily on our user research, which helped us develop the mindset that we aren't our users. Next slide. And so as I just mentioned, most of our efforts were dedicated to research. We created a survey and conducted user interviews with students and members of the Columbia Transportation team and Columbia Shuttle Bus provider. We also looked at ride-sharing apps, the MTA app, and even took some inspiration from the Swiss transportation app, which included adding a legend to our trip planner page, which Mariek will go over later. And through our research, we were able to identify pain points related to inconsistency in shuttle routes, unintuitive bus schedules, and lack of alerts and notifications. We also treated these pain points as areas for improvement and pinpointed making the shuttle routes more understandable, simplifying the user's next step, and streamlining the shuttle service experience. Next slide. Throughout this project, we followed Google's design sprint methodology and developed a journey map, created multiple solution sketches, drafted and refined our user stories, and designed mid to high fidelity mockups. Some of the insights we gathered throughout the process were mentioned previously, but we really focused our efforts into intertwining our design with feedback from our users. Also, we linked our mid-fidelity prototype and user testing evaluation results just in case anyone wants to look at that further. And yeah, with that, I'd like to pass it over to Mariek to go over some of the key takeaways we gathered from our users and implemented into our final product.
Hi, so this is, sorry, I'm trying to find my notes. Okay, so here you can already see a feature preview of our high fidelity prototype. I have to say, before we did this, after we did our mid-fidelity prototype, we got the notification that Columbia Shuttle Services actually got rid of the night shuttle, which we initially designed for. So this is, for example, something where we had to pivot and kind of take it out. So before we came to this high fidelity prototype, we started testing. We had 4 testers and asked them to take the intercampus shuttle to Studebaker South Street or any station, and try to find their way around the app in order to do that. The insights we got from that were that we definitely need to indicate the direction of the bus lines better. That wasn't clear. We were supposed to add icons to the bus maps. that are more easy to understand. We were asked to explain the color of the bus lines better, clarify the ETA, which wasn't clear before, find an intuitive place to communicate service changes alerts, fix misleading wording, such as, for example, as you see in the trip planner, it doesn't say how many miles away the bus is. That was something we had before, and that caused some confusion. Communicate the bus capacity and make it possible to contact a Columbia University transportation official. And basically, we realized that our customers expect an all-in-one service that optimizes their travels by providing personalized trip planning. And this is what we did. Can you switch to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this, oh, okay. Tamara, can you give her access, please, to the...
Yeah, sorry about that. 1 minute.
Sorry, you should have access to this, I thought. So this is, or we can, in the meantime, maybe we go back to the slide before until Tamara has given you access, because there, oh, okay. So you can see we implemented the trip planner to the homepage because we saw that this was something the users immediately navigated to. And we also implemented a save trips feature. So you have easy access to trips you take very often. In terms of clearing up all the confusion that this system caused in the past, we not only implemented an FAQ, but also, do you have access? Okay. Do we still have time for the walkthrough, Laura?
I'm gonna play it on double speed, or would you prefer, oops, or would you prefer if I just play the first half?
Sure, play it on double speed.
Okay.
Sure, so, sorry guys. Okay, so this is a very quick walkthrough through our tutorial. This is where you can see the trip planner. We implemented a feature where you can look up your route on the map and where your closest stop is. You have easy access to notifications during your trip planning that are relevant to your trip. We implemented secondary features such as the route map, where you, yeah, okay, scheduled, you have a better overview of, oh my God, this is way too fast, about schedules. We implemented more detailed view of the planned service changes. This again is our chatbot feature where you can ask any kind of question you have and they navigate you to the relevant page on the website. Yeah, and this is basically a very, very quick walkthrough of our final prototype.
Great, thank you so much. Amazing. Right, next we're going to move on to GenderEv.
Yay! Yay! Okay. Hi, I'm Ender Minyard. I use no pronouns. I'm an applied math major. Today I'm presenting GenderEv. Next. GenderEv is a student club at Columbia which aims to bring together trans and non-binary students. Next. I made a website for posting club events, but because of the pandemic, club events don't happen anymore. I wanted to find a new way to engage the community while we were all apart. Next. Design at Columbia's Session 1 helped me find out what GenderEv's members need from the site. The design sprint started with user research, where I performed competitor analysis and carried out user interviews. Next. From my user interviews, I learned GenderEv's users prefer consuming content to creating it. Next. Also, a pivotal concern of our users is privacy. Privacy came up again and again. Next. When I first built the website for GenderEv, my ideal user was me. But I learned that I am not my only user, but simply one part of the wider GenderEv community. Next. Going through the website with users during user testing revealed a lot of technical and design issues. Next. So this was a page before the feed that helped you come up with something to post on the feed, but this page confused users, so I got rid of it. For example, on the feed, you would post a text post saying, "This was how my day went," something like that, a feed of posts on a social networking site. However, this confused users, so it no longer exists. Next. I designed a system where our users would vote on the newest feature. This was inspired by Professor Harry West's Crazy 8 exercise from the design sprint. Next. Previously, users voted on the page to the left. You can see that they would have to find a little button at the bottom where it says vote on things, and a lot of users could not find that little button. However, I changed it to a mobile pop-up that was pretty impossible to miss, and users were able to find the button that allowed them to vote on features that would soon come up newly in the website. Next. Voting used to be an upvote and downvote system, but user testing, where I went through the website with users on video call, showed me that users would just vote up for every feature. This was really frustrating. One user even suggested that it should be a system where you rank the features that you want to see. So now the voting feature is looking like the picture to the right. It's not interactive, but you drag the features you want to see to the top. And so your vote is weighted. It's not that you just vote up for every feature you want to see. Next. This design sprint taught me that design and engineering are not the same. I took Lydia's class, shout out. So I thought that design and engineering were really, 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 really close together, but they're actually really, really, really not completely the same. I also wish that I had interviewed more people because I learned so much from interviews. They were amazing. And for the future, I want GenderRev to go global. Trans people can feel so lonely. It's a hard life for many of us. And I hope that the GenderRev community expands to trans people all over the world, not just those within the gates of the Columbia campus. Next. If you have any questions, you can email or Slack me. My email is listed in the slides, and you can go to genderrev.com if you want to try it for yourself. Thank you very much to Laura and Lydia and Mark and everyone involved.
Thank you, Anda. Amazing, amazing project. Right, we are moving on to Spellaby.
Hey guys, my name is Nick Rockwood, and my project is called Spellaby. So when we started learning remotely, I have a lot of friends who are educators and others who have young children. And so I got to hear a lot about the frustrations they were experiencing with the shift to remote learning. And this got me thinking, how could I make this a smoother transition for them? Next slide, please. And so I started with, how might we help parents and students transition to remote learning? And then I realized, well, how might we engage students so they actually want to learn independently without bugging their parents? And then that led me to how can we make this a game that's also an educational tool that children can use by themselves? Next slide, please. And so for my competitive analysis, there's lots of educational apps out there, from language learning to math to computer science. And when I did my initial interviews, my friends who were educators offered a little insight as to how they were actually teaching their students, and I realized that a standalone app would have minimal impact as to how children were executing their assignments or completing their assigned lesson plans. Next slide, please. And then to further complicate this, I realized that I had three really distinct users. I obviously have the child, the student, And then there's the parent who would want to check their child's progress and help them. And then the educator who might also want to check progress or assign certain games within the application. At any rate, I had to figure out a way for these three distinct users to have distinct ways to use the same plugin or application. Next slide, please. So as you can see through this journey map, it just gets worse and worse and worse until finally at the end of the day, on any given day, everyone's exhausted and they're just happy that the day is over, even if both the adult and the child have work left to do. They just like don't care. That was the universal feedback I got from people, was that they survived. So I realized that there was lots of room for improvement and room to grow and increase the viability of this new lifestyle. Next slide, please. So I took all of this and I came up with the idea, why not make a plugin or an extension for younger children to learn new words that they might encounter on their journey. So talking to my friends that say they're learning about photosynthesis, they might encounter words they don't know, and that's kind of their cue to go get mom. So I wanted to try and minimize those interactions for both the children and for the parents. Next slide. So this was my first iteration before I did any user testing. And I decided that once you turn it on, this friendly little bee overlay pops up. And when you click on a word, any word on the web page, you get a little pop-up that asks you if you want to save the word. It gives you the definition. However, to use any of the features of the actual plugin besides just looking up words, you have to navigate away from the web page. And then that would cause a lot of problems later. Next slide, please. So when I did the testing, you can see the adults killed it. They had no problem reading instructions and navigating, but Penelope, my 7-year-old user, had trouble anytime she had to engage with a paragraph or text of instructions, or when she had to navigate in a complicated fashion beyond a simple single page. So then this led me to my next kind of place. Next slide. So after talking to a few educators, they helped me realize that I needed to more clearly delineate experiences for the student. And she also introduced me to the concept of scaffolding text and making bullet points that clearly mark out the path to successfully complete a given task. I also realized that I had to minimize the plugin's presence on the website itself. So when it's not active, it didn't interfere with the website and the lesson plan the teacher was trying to execute. Next slide, please. So in my second iteration, I got a website that my friend whose teacher actually uses. And so now when the bee overlay is gone altogether, and I added this sidebar menu instead, which is much less intrusive to modern websites. Next slide. And so when you click on a word, a little bee just pops up above the word. And when you click him, this is the same information that you get as before, but it's just much less intrusive. So you can add the word, or you can close the screen and continue looking at different types of animals. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is the original version of the homepage that had all of the other features of the app. And notice how much text there is on the side. And so apparently a child would never read this. Instead, they often pick keywords and then just click on things, on images. And then, so this really got me thinking of like how children learn and how they engage with technology. I mean, I guess adults are the same, but for children, it's just exasperated. Next slide. So I made it now so that you can get full functionality from the plugin without ever having to navigate away from the teacher-assigned web page. I added more iconography, and I minimized the amount of instructions a child would have to read in order to use the plugin. And this to me is much more intuitive, even as an adult. And so you still get all the features that I wanted to include, but now you don't have to leave the website and you can stay in one place. And next slide. This is just an example of one of the games that you can play using the words that you've collected. Again, you'll notice there's bullet point instructions. It's fairly simple to pick up how to actually play the game. And most importantly, like this is big, they never leave the website, because apparently that's just like a death sentence for a child's focus. And then next slide, please. So for my next steps, I want to code a working version. And then, yeah, it's like echo ender. Testing was so vital, and talking to children and parents and educators all offered such unique perspectives. but especially the kids, because it's so weird to see how they process information and interact with things so differently. But then also I want to work more with educators to develop the actual games and to find new outdoor activities that can also do that limit their screen time, and then continue to iterate. And then next slide, this last one. So that's my email if you have any questions, and there's also the clickable prototype. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What an exciting project. And then for our final team to present tonight, I'm going to welcome the SSOL redesign team.
Hi, so this was a 5-member team. Me and Ryan are here. I'm Aisha, and we'll be presenting our rendition of SSOL.
Yeah,
so
hi.
You can go to the next slide. The SSOL, I guess that most people here are Columbia students or, professors, and we all know there's like a huge room of improvement because it's a very rudimentary website at the moment. And so we mostly went off our own experience of how we used SSOL initially to build on what we wanted it to look like. But next slide. We created a journey map after we did like Google formed and asked current feedback, like what people use SSOL for most right now and their problems and what they love about it. And after identifying the stakeholders, which are on the next slide. Next, yeah. And we concluded that one, users wanted a more aesthetically pleasing website, and they wanted it to be more efficient with less redirection, especially during registration, because we go from tab to tab to tab, which can just be really annoying. And we wanted to give students the option to personalize their experience, so whatever they used SSOL for most, they got those options before, and then like everything else went on the sidelines. Next. And then, so we started ideating, and this was really fun. So we split into two. 3 of us, me, Andrea, and Raymond, worked on the homepage and what we wanted the site itself to look like. And then Brian and Yiping worked on what they wanted the registration process to look like. And this is what we got for our homepage. So we wanted to split like the main groups that SSOL's links have into the dashboard, the academics, finances, and campus life. And on the dashboard, we wanted to have all these quick access links and a profile. And on the academics, we wanted everybody to be able to see their classes and GPA and everything on one page. Finances, the same. Like we wanted everyone to see their bill the second they pressed it, not have to be like redirected. And campus life, we wanted to make your dining plan and your housing and all the other tools and resources more transparent, because they're really hard to look for at the moment. Next page. And this is pretty much the same. This is like more options that we wanted to see. And then on the next slide, we have registration. Ryan could talk more about this because he's the one who actually made this crazy.
Yeah, so basically we thought through what sort of stuff we want for registration and what was missing. I think the key takeaway from this registration Crazy 8 was that we decided it would be good to have recommendations for what kind of classes you can take on. And so things like suggestions for what stuff you're missing from your core or from your main major. And then that would be really good to integrate it all, as well as we decided that it would be good to have a graphic interface to show your timetable and to show like how every class slots in with the next, so that it would make registration easy and easier for you to plan your classes. Something like Virgil, but integrated within SSOL itself. Next. So yeah.
There, yeah, we ended up making it even prettier. Next slide. And this is mostly Raymond. He actually coded the website, so HTML, CSS, and everything. So this is what we want the dashboard to look like. You have your name, your major, your graduation, uni, and everything right on top. And then you have quick access links for like your classes, bills, generating a transcript, etc. And then on the sides, you can like star whichever ones you want to see like right on top. Next. Then we got academics. So you see your GPA, your academic advisor, your major advisor, your academic standing, etc. Then you see your classes right on the left. And you can't do this on there, but if you scroll down, then there's a calendar version of what classes you're registered for, similar on virtual. And there's also an option to export it to either your iCal and Google so that you don't really have to put in each class you're taking separately if you're the kind of person who uses the calendar. Next. And then the finances, you have your bill summary on the side and positive attendance and any financial aid that you have. And we also have the option of contacting student financial services and financial aid right from there. And also the some available jobs like on-campus employment and stuff. Like you could contact SCCE, but we would also want them to have post them on SSOL so that, you know, like there's one portal where students can find everything. Next. And this is like campus life. We wanted to have it include community events. We were thinking of taking those from like events that are registered with event management services. So that's not like individual student groups are posting events on SSOL. It's just like there's one database that just imports it. But you also being able to see your meal plan, housing, and then tools and resources would include stuff like different academic departments, maybe ones that are specific to your major, and etc. We're still brainstorming on those, but that's generally what we want it to look like. And then the next slides have registration, and yeah, Raymond could get over at this.
So basically, the main goal was to have the graphic interface. So you can basically on the right side you can show and hide the whole calendar, and then whenever you update your classes, you can actually it will just pop up, and we have color coding to show or whether you have a main class or whether you have a waitlisted class or whether you have a class that you wanted to put in a wish list. So you can see how it slots in to the actual calendar, and then you have the static tabs to switch between the so yeah, this part we can have a drop down menu to change the semester, so it makes it easy to like compare between your various semesters, and the keynote feature is basically the feature of suggested classes that's based on whether you have a certain completion requirements or whether you have certain like course that you haven't completed. It will try and use an algorithm to sort out like and throw out suggested classes, because we thought that there were actually a lot of core classes that would be interesting, and just that whenever people search online and search on Google things such as what classes should I use for a certain course, they tend to throw out the same kind of results. So that's why we ended up with this feature. So yeah, for reflections, yeah, so we wanted to fulfill everything that the users want. So basically, we realized that there are actually a lot more than what we currently have, and you need to pick and choose. And then I guess we now kind of realize why SSL looks the way it is, because there are a lot of features probably people ideated, but it's much harder to slot everything people want in. And it's much easier to do brainstorming and come up with a lot of ideas, but actually implementing them and making them like a realistic tool was a little bit difficult. Yeah. And so how do we make this a reality? We actually currently in contact with SSOL, and we will want to see how we can speak with the CUIT team to see how we can implement some of the ideas we currently have. So yeah, thank you so much.
SSOL is actually planning on revamping this summer anyways, so we're just gonna hop onto that train and make sure that this vision becomes a reality.
That's right.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of the teams who have presented today. I am completely blown away by the level of work that we've seen, some really amazing, exciting projects. I think just from the level of energy in the chat, you know, people are really excited about everything that's going on. And for anyone who wasn't able to join in on session 1, we have got session 2 plans underway. I've made an announcement in the announcement channel on Slack. So if you weren't able to catch that, go check it out there. We've got a slide with all of the announcements on session 2. We're restructuring it. We're going more to a weekend sprint process rather than one project over 6 weeks. And we're really excited about moving forward with that in the upcoming weeks. And now we will be having a career panel with some amazing Columbia students and alumni. This is just the agenda. We're running a little bit behind time, but hopefully that's all right for everyone. So we'll have introductions, then we'll have panel questions, which have been taken from the feedback form that we included a question part on, and then after the panel questions we will be doing a short Q&A, so please keep thinking of questions, posting them in the chat, and we'll get to them afterwards.
Are we going to take a very quick break, Laura? Do you want to take like a minute?
Yeah, how about
You want some water?
Yeah. Sure, how about we take a 2-minute break? Does that work?
Sure.
Okay, great. And if anyone wants to comment about projects or chat, ask questions, go ahead.
I always feel like when we take these breaks, we should have some sort of like elevator music. I'm always like humming elevator music in my head.
Perrin, I don't know if you've had this experience, but every time I've taught anything, even remotely design related, like half the class comes back. I'm like, oh my God, interviews. I learned so much. And I'm like, yes, welcome to the dark side. Now you know how to frame them, like talk to a person. Like it's so helpful. I think it's hard because it challenges the notions that you have in your head. And it's just not what we typically teach people. It's not the routine that school would have you go through unless you've like been in a journalism program, I think. But that is like just the number one like insight that I hear people take out of design classes.
Yeah. Getting to know your user, it's important. If there's one thing to take away from session 1, get to know your users. Cool. I see Laura's back. She's got her water. Yep, we're ready to go. Awesome. Cool. So I'll be taking over from here on to kind of pseudo moderate the panel and help guide us through some of the amazing questions that everyone submitted. Since we're running a little low on time, let's have all of the panelists do a like 1-minute intro. Maybe just include your name, pronouns, what you studied, what you were involved with at Columbia or are involved at Columbia, and kind of some of your more recent experience in design related, product related stuff. I'll start off real quick just to get the ball rolling. I'm Perrin, he, him, C's 2020, and super keen to see that we have all 4 undergrad schools represented here, plus SIPA, so you can have any background and be a designer. And I'm now an interaction designer at Google, just got off a work meeting, but I was peeping all of your amazing presentations like during my other meeting. I literally had my 2 laptops set up. Y'all slayed it. And I'm gonna pass it off to Aleksei. We can kind of go down this virtual panel line to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, my name is Aleksei. As you can see, I'm a student at GS 2022. I'm majoring in information science. That major allows me to kind of combine computer science, psychology, sociology, accessibility coursework, classes in human-centered design and innovation. So I'm trying to build my own track. I'm combining all of this together. My passion is technology and people, and I'm trying to bring them closer to each other, trying to improve technology for people and improving technology for everyone, regardless where they're coming from. What I'm doing now is I'm interning for Apple as a user researcher. And something I've been involved on campus, it's
design at Columbia, also UX lab, and design studio at Columbia.
Awesome. Sharon, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I also want to say, like, great job on all of your projects. They all looked really awesome, and I'm so happy you guys are doing this. So I'm a rising senior in Columbia College. I'm doing a CS and architecture combination track. This summer I'm going to be interning at Ghostery. I think there was a little mix-up on this email, which is fine, but I'll be starting at Colgate next month. So that was just to clear that up. I'm super interested in like UX design. I actually studied abroad this past semester at the University of Sydney, where Perrin was also at, to study user experience design. And I guess on campus, I'm the founder and president of the Asian Creative Collective, which I started last semester. And I also dance on CU Generation with Karen, who's speaking next. And I also do the UX design lab with Perrin and Aleksei. So yeah, super excited to be here.
Hi guys, yeah, I'm Karen. Thank you for that excellent segue, Sharon. I'm a rising senior as well in CC, graduating 2021, and I'm also studying CS with the track robotics and interactions. Really was interested in like game design and animation, but have delved more down the UX product design route. And into that, I'm currently a product design intern at MongoDB, where I am designing for the developer, which I think is a very niche target group that not a lot of people really think or consider about. And I think it's really great to utilize my CS background and think about things from the back end as well as the user interaction perspective as well. I'm also the design lead at Columbia Virtual Campus right now. If you guys want to check that out, we are trying to connect people throughout this COVID-19 times and trying to get people to still interact with each other and connect through virtual events on Columbia Virtual Campus, as well as we are hosting a Black Lives Matter tutoring program in order to help underrepresented communities and donate to Black Lives Matter organizations. Like Sharon said before, I'm also on CU Gen with her. I am the artistic director for next semester, and I'm super excited to be a part of that as well. But yeah, super excited, and your projects were absolutely fantastic as well.
Hey, I'll go next. Hi guys, I'm Surbhi. I graduated last year, so Barnard College class of 19. I was a computer science major and an econ minor. Within computer science, actually, I created my own track. So a part of the CS majors, you can choose to do a combinations track. And so at the time, there wasn't anything design-based, which I was like pretty disappointed about. So what I did was I took classes in like psychology and classes at the IEOR department and tried to create my own version of an HCD track, but you know, it was with limited resources. So I'm really excited to hear that like so much has come up in the year that I've graduated, and you guys have so many more clubs and interest groups. Like that's really, really amazing. So what I do now is I'm a product manager at Microsoft. I specifically work on the platform called Microsoft Teams, which if you aren't familiar with it, it's kind of like this combination of Slack and Zoom. So you can imagine being on this is pretty crazy and using the Slack that we have for design at Columbia. But yeah, I actually specifically work on all the video and audio and video calling platform. So I'm the youngest PM on my team, and I actually have, in the 1 year that I've been working, have started to own a lot. And a lot of it has to do with a lot of design concepts and thinking about design and thinking about the user, a lot of user research, accessibility, really great concepts like that. That I'm excited to share. And while I was at Barnard, I was involved in plenty of things, but some of my big stuff was I was on student government, so really involved with SGA, and then I was also a dancer. I was a dancer on the Columbia Punga dance team. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Great, and I can go last here. I'm so honored to be on this panel, and I'm so psyched to be invited to this session. This is, as other panelists have said, this is the coolest thing. I wish this existed when I was an undergrad at a different school, but I just graduated from SIPA at Columbia graduate school. And my name is Addie Thompson, I should have said that. She, her are my pronouns. And I came to SIPA, which is a public policy school, with kind of much more of a background in brand design, sort of brand marketing, communications design. I worked at Ashoka, Patagonia, and Nike before SIPA. So I definitely was much more in kind of the corporate world, but definitely with a social impact lens. And I would say HCD, human-centered design, played in a great amount to my time at Ashoka, especially where I was around social entrepreneurs who were designing solutions for their users or, you know, people in the world, but they were doing so through a human-centered design lens. So that was kind of my first, you know, brush with that. Came to SIPA and was so lucky to meet Perrin, actually, and Aleksei, who I was lucky enough to TA this year as well. Met Perrin as a co-design fellow at the design studio, where again, kind of bringing in more of an organizational design background and kind of a, you know, ways that teams work with each other and different ways teams connect. That's kind of my interest area in the whole design space. So hopefully I can provide that angle on the panel today. I know we have a lot of CS wisdom and knowledge around, which is awesome. And lastly, yeah, so now I'm working with the UN, specifically the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and I'm doing in a communications role once again. But I would say there's some design elements to that, so I'll also talk about that a little later. But thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Addie, can we actually get started with you with our first question?
Yes.
Always fascinated about journey into design and what first got you interested in a human-centered design field and perspective to your work. I was just curious, what first got you interested in this space, or where did you first hear about it? And what was your first step that you took after discovering it?
Ooh, okay, yeah. So as I mentioned, I went to a different undergrad university, Brown. I know, a little contentious, love Columbia though. I was introduced to human-centered design really through kind of this lens of social entrepreneurship and social impact, and what did it mean to design for, you know, design more of a business model rather than you know, a sort of a visual design, a pamphlet or whatnot. But that comes a little bit later. So I was really kind of into systems design and human design, or human-centered design, I should say. And, you know, was lucky enough, I mean, my goodness, the support at Columbia is incredible. And this is really amazing to see. I'm blown away, not surprised with people like Perrin at the helm, who I know personally, but others who I'm meeting right now. And I felt though that at Brown, my undergrad university, I was able to access certain resources. I mean, it was honestly about finding community in the university and really realizing like, hey, there's some like-minded people around who want to talk about design, want to talk about problem solving and changing the world and all these lofty things that we talk about. But I didn't really find a home for that until I would say kind of midway through my sophomore year. And then concurrently, I also heard about Ashoka, which is a nonprofit based down in DC that works with supporting social entrepreneurs all over the world who are doing incredible change making in different various countries. So as soon as I heard about them, I kind of zeroed in on like, I think that's where I want to work after graduation. But I would say that once I got to Ashoka, which I was lucky enough to get to, I would say once I was there was actually, so it was funny. I really came to more traditional design or sort of graphic design or even a bit of industrial design through a need, which was that Ashoka was this incredible nonprofit, but really had no resources kind of geared towards marketing, communications, or graphic design at all. And so I actually started to kind of like learn, you know, like all the things you guys already know, but kind of learn the Adobe suite and learn different design tools to start really conveying, you know, whether it was for a fundraising purpose, which I'm also coming up against now with the UN, like, you know, communicating a story can be through so many different angles. And I've also been involved in filmmaking in the past. And I just think visual storytelling can take such a different route. But what I really did, honestly, Perrin, was to kind of we had our like 100, you know, there's sort of the 80-20. I would say my 120, right? I did 120%. I kind of added on an extra job, you know, to my day job where I was really interested in building these marketing and communications materials from scratch. So making infographics and social media pieces and kind of just going from there. So I would say that it honestly, you know, we talk about the studio a lot, Perrin, about constraints. I feel like this was sort of my constraint, was like no budget, you know, young, like fresh out of college, super into like, let's be scrappy, let's be entrepreneurial, and kind of created a mini marketing department within, you know, within this nonprofit that really didn't have one, and kind of taught myself a lot of these things. So I would say it was sort of a beautifully placed constraint that really got me, that really sort of thrust me into design.
Awesome, love that. We can go back down the line the opposite way, or whoever wants to hop in first, go for it.
Okay, I can hop in. So in terms of like how I kind of was introduced to design, or how I even started thinking about design, was I kind of knew right from the get-go when I started the computer science track, I wasn't really interested in a lot of those like pure engineering based computer science concepts. Like I wasn't really interested in networks. I wasn't interested in fundies. Like, no offense if you love fundies. Like those weren't the things that made me really excited about computer science. And being at Barnard, I was a liberal arts student, right? Like I know a lot of other people identify as liberal arts too through UC, but like Barnard at its core is very much about like, hey, learn a little bit about this and learn a little bit about that. And I kept wanting to bring that idea to computer science. Like, I don't want to just learn about these highly technical things. I want to think about how tech can solve this problem and that problem. And I think a fundamental foundation to realizing how tech can solve a lot of problems is like how design can solve a lot of problems. So I did this internship when I was a sophomore at Barnard, and it was like a product manager-esque kind of internship. And I was really like working on how to design a mobile app. But when I was working to do that, I needed to understand so much about the user base and all of these different things that I had no clue about. And I was like, okay, I kind of need to backtrack before being like, this is what the app is going to do. Like, why does the app need to do this, or who is the app solving for? And that was actually my like first introduction into this like design, user research kind of framework or style of thinking. And then I took a class the summer between my sophomore and junior year. It was just like some online class that I found that was another introduction to it. And then I was super lucky that I actually took a class with Lydia. I took her UI design class the first semester she was teaching it. And I think that was kind of one of the final courses, or like the course that made me be like, yeah, actually, I don't want to be a pure software engineer. I want to do this interdisciplinary thing. And that's when I continued to pursue more like product manager opportunities as opposed to pure design, because, you know, like I said, I was like on SGA, I had a lot of interests that were also like leadership based. So I felt like product would be like a pretty good intersection of those things. So I kind of ended up down that route. So that was kind of like my introduction to a lot of those concepts and ideas.
Awesome, love it. Shout out to Lydia. How about you, Karen?
Yeah, I think mine was a little bit interesting. I started off at Columbia as a visual arts major, actually, and then I switched over to CS once I realized I wanted to go into more like the technology of nowadays that's really prevalent. But I still wanted to incorporate like that visual arts background, that use of creativity in a lot of my work. And I started initially in like graphic design, which was more purely like visual or illustration based, and realized I wanted to like delve into a little bit more about the user problems, the user needs, and how to make people's actual experiences a lot more easy or accessible. And I realized that required a lot more like communication with the people that are actually using it, and to really like hone in on those concepts through like user-centered design. I thought that was a really like cool field that I wanted to like go into. And definitely like my first academic experience with UI design or product design was with Brian Smith's UI design class, and he really introduced me to like that kind of user-centered design cycle and user research. Like a lot of the parts underneath like what you see at the end product. And then I was also a TA for Lydia's class this semester as well. And I was introduced to like mentorship and helping others out with UI design. And that really just solidified like that path that I wanted to take. But yeah, fairly normal, but yeah, that was my experiences.
Nice. I know, Sharon, you do some architecture as well, some more visual side of things. How did you get inspired into more of the UX side, and what's some of that story?
Yeah, I think mine definitely wasn't like one defining moment. So I am majoring in computer science and architecture, so I think I've always been really interested in both like how things look and also how they work. And so both like technical side and like the visual aesthetic side. And I also actually came into college as a neuroscience major. So I've always been really interested in human behavior as well. So then I took my first human-centered design class with Professor Harry West, which is absolutely amazing. I recommend everyone take that class. And I think that was where I saw that really combined like all of my interests. Like it combined like the human behavior parts, it combined like building things and technical aspects, and also just like visual design and some of what I've learned in architecture. So after that, I also took the UI design class with Professor Brian Smith, and I loved that as well. And then after meeting Perrin and getting involved with the UX Design Lab, I also decided to study abroad in Sydney, where I took all design classes, and I was just surrounded by like all these amazing designers, which definitely isn't a community that is at Columbia yet, but hopefully with Design at Columbia, this is also something that we'll bring here. So I think that was like the last part that really solidified that I really wanted to be like in this community of like all the amazing people that I've met. And I think it made me really realize that it combined like everything that I've been really interested in since like the beginning.
Woo, shout out to Sydney. Yeah, we've had a few Columbia students now go to the design school down there. We all highly recommend it, but ideally you don't have to run off to Australia to get more into this. And last up, Aleksei, I know that you've studied at a couple different schools before landing at Columbia. I guess what was your experience and how did you get into UX and specifically user research?
Yeah, my experience probably very unique. I moved from a different country to United States 6 years ago without knowing English, and I had to spend about 2 years to learn English before I can go back to school. But since then, I switched, I think 4 schools. So I also switched 4 different majors, maybe 5. I couldn't find myself. And while I was attending one of the CUNY schools here in New York, I got a job at Apple. I was a part-time specialist. And since I got to Apple, I was always inspired how everything works smooth and kind of no distractions. So in terms of applications or like the product, as well as the customer service. And I always loved it so much. So I always wanted to do some like offer my input. And luckily Apple had some internal tools that I could implement. I could do some basically user research internally for a day or 2 and then propose some solution to a problem. I think that's how everything started, and I didn't know what I want to do. I knew I wanted to like improve technology. I wanted to talk to people, and I learned about human factors at that moment. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where to go and talk and who talk to about this. So I started searching a lot online what human factors are, and that brought me to UX research and UX design. But the next big change that probably influenced me and my decision a lot was GS released a new website and they were doing usability studies. And I signed up for that because I was just curious to talk to UX researcher. And after the session, I just basically introduced myself, asked a bunch of questions about their job, and everything sounded so much fun. Doing usability studies and like discovering how a website, like simple thing like a website, can be improved. So I got on board with Columbia IT for 3 months, and I started learning more about UX. But I already was at Columbia, and nobody else were talking about UX until I met Perrin at Design Studio, and he told me about UX. So this is my involvement, and then I started attending UX Lab at Design Studio that Perrin started a year ago. So I'm being bombarded with a lot of knowledge about UX and user research. I've been mostly interested in UX research, trying to explore design more as well. Hopefully next summer I spend as an intern as a UX designer. But for now, I'm a user experience researcher at Apple, and I'm basically working on a project going through the same design process like you did this summer. Mine is going to be a little bit longer. It's going to be entire summer, similar to something what we did in Design for Social Innovation course, or human, what was it? Human computer design and innovation. In all those courses, it's basically 3 months. You only think about the user, and in the end, you have a solution to a problem. So that's how I started, and that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. I love all the kind of different journeys to design and all the different contexts that you can pick up the industry. To kind of shift from journey to now career, you're all into design, you're all doing human-centered design related stuff now. You've all kind of made it a bit. We have a lot of new and budding designers and PMs and other people that want to do design in different contexts. Could you guys shed some light into what the job or internship search was like? Specifically, you know, what was your experience being a designer from a school that doesn't support design heavily? And if there was any tips and tricks along the way while you were recruiting and kind of showing off, like, yeah, I can still be a designer. Aleksei, I know we worked together a bit during your recruiting. I guess we can go back down the line the other way, if that's okay.
So it's really a tough question asking, like, you coming from not design school and you going to be competing with all those amazing designers from like schools like Parson, Carnegie Mellon, and to me, I took it a different way. So I was thinking that I'm going to bring my approach from Columbia that actually expose you to different core classes. In addition to that, I had experience going to different schools. I switched countries. I learned new language. So I think when I was going through interview process, I would always bring something like a story, how I got into this, what I learned along this journey, along the journey of applying to Columbia, being admitted, deciding on my major. It's all about decision making, and you have to always bring it up during the interview process. The way I was searching for internships, I think I was searching it everywhere, even like on the walls at Columbia, where is it like postings about events? I would say I wouldn't search there. So I would say go different routes, try to find your internship anywhere. I used Handshake. So I got, I think, 4 interviews for UX designer or researcher from Handshake, and few from like word of mouth. So also make sure you have a lot of connections, talk to people, share ideas, be active, be proactive about everything. And then I was going through, I think I had 6 companies I was interviewing for. So some of them were through word of mouth, some of them were through Handshake, but it's kind of a constant search. constantly want to search for new opportunities and apply, you definitely don't want to apply for like 1,000 internships. You should pick which one you want to apply and make sure your LinkedIn looks up to date. Make sure your LinkedIn speaks to the job or like the posting that you're applying for, or the company and company culture. With me, I wanted to continue working for Apple. I've been with Apple now for 3.5 years. For the past months, I've been their intern, but prior was salesperson. So I tried to research how do they get the interns for UX research or design. And unfortunately, they don't recruit for this at Columbia. They have very interesting process of recruiting people for this. So I went internally. First, I went externally. I went on LinkedIn and I started searching people that did this internship in the past. I started reaching out to people. Not everyone was responsive, so I took it a different way. I started going through their posts, what they posted prior. So actually, some of them posted about their amazing experience as an intern on the user experience team, and they also listed managers. So I started emailing managers. That's how I got my internship. I had a 3-minute conversation with one of the managers who took my resume and sent it to university recruiters. And that's how I got Apple internship. So I would definitely encourage you email as much as possible, talk to people as much as possible, and make new connections. It's not about getting the internships, it's also getting to know people. I've met so many people along the way, and some of them actually end up being interns this summer with Apple, and I've been chatting with them too.
Awesome. I definitely will second to the part that you were talking about storytelling. You all have super unique stories of how you came to design, came to these design fields, the perspectives that you bring. And anyone that's hiring will want to know that. And if you can tell the story, which design, a lot of it is storytelling, you can tell the story of your different background being a strength, not a weakness. I think you've always done a good job of that. Just for the sake of time, maybe we could have 1 or 2 more people answer this question, and then we can get a couple more in. We're planning in about 10 minutes to open it up to general questions from the audience. So just want to make sure that we still have time for that. But if anyone really wants to talk about recruiting, feel free to take the floor.
I think I can talk a little bit. I think me and Sharon are both like currently like undergrads as well, and we've been going through the recruitment process every single year, and are currently we're going to be going into the full-time job search as well. But yeah, a little bit about my experiences. I think definitely being from Columbia as not a design school can be seen as a negative, especially like what Aleksei was saying before. We're competing with like really good designers from professional or like specialized design schools. So what I utilized was definitely like my CS background to market myself as like an individual who had more than just like design skills. And I feel like CS specifically, since design, or at least the design I go into, is very heavily tech related, it was a really great plus for me to market because I was able to empathize a lot. Like empathy was a big part in like understanding how the things you're designing are even created in the end, and being able to understand how your designs come from the very low level of like how you build up the back end to the front end and to the designs itself. So I definitely marketed that, and that was definitely heavily used in my interview process for this semester or this year, and is how I got my internship at MongoDB, by definitely marketing towards their target user group, which was the developer and the database user as well. But I also want to talk about a little bit about how I was interested in like the game design industry as well. We have at Columbia a lot of like specialized or more graduate level courses in like 3D UI and user interfaces and augmented reality. We have computer graphics and computer animation. Those were some courses that got me opportunities at like Blizzard and Activision as well. and was like really cool to see how you could utilize your coding programming background and mix that with like a whole new field that I've never really been able to go through a little bit more. And I thought that was a really cool opportunity to delve into. And definitely what Aleksei was saying about like having connections, I thought was fairly like really important as well. I was constantly like cold emailing recruiters, basically, like getting recruiter information, asking, marketing myself and saying why I wanted to work at that specific company. And it helped me get interviews definitely at like a lot of the big tech companies as well. And that's just like the first step. And then being able to present yourself and being able to research that company is fairly important to say like why they want you just as much as you want them. But yeah, and then I guess like portfolio is probably the most, like the biggest first impression to have. Like cold emailing is nice and all, but they then look at your portfolio and they're like, oh, maybe have a chance, you know? And then that like opens the gates from there. But I think we could talk a little bit more about that later on. But yeah, that was just my experiences with recruiting. And I'm still learning about that process as I go as well.
I will also echo portfolios. Amazing answer, by the way. And how your unique perspective can land you in different niches and different companies that will appreciate that. 100% recruiters will look at your portfolio after you cold email. So we'll be doing a portfolio sprint in session 2, and there'll be tons of time to get feedback on your portfolio. But if you have like a hot portfolio, you'll get the interview. And from there, it's kind of like, there's more to it, but getting through that first step and getting over Columbia not being a design school, your portfolio is really your proof. And we're kind of lucky in that way with design, is people will look at your work and evaluate you on what you've already done, regardless of where you come from. And to switch it up a little bit, for Addie, for example, I'll call you out here. You're not necessarily in quote unquote design, but your career incorporates a lot of design. What has the process looked like for you finding a job that leverages your current skills, but also allows you to flex some of the design and human-centered design muscles that you've built up?
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a couple things to say from like a very objective perspective about all of the incredible talent on this call, but I'll save that for a little bit. But I feel like my understanding of my relationship to design and human-centered design is that it's going to be constant through my whole life. And I might actually never work in design, but I know I will use it in every single job. I've used it in every single job I've had, and I will use it in the future. To me, it's sort of just like, public speaking or, facilitation or team building. Like, I mean, it's sort of in my core skill set now. And I would say that really got solidified at the design studio as a design fellow. But I think that my interest in design has always been, so where it might be the core, like design might be the core for you all who are applying as a designer. But for me, it was sort of what also kind of made me a well-rounded candidate, if that makes sense. So if I was applying for something in policy or I was applying for something in marketing, my interest in design and my ability to design on the fly if I had to without formal training was sort of another like interesting component. And so I would say for everyone, or for some people on the call who are wanting to go into specifically design, I mean, the fact that, yes, I hear that Columbia is not a design school, but from a very, very outside perspective, like Columbia is not a joke. I mean, Barnard, these schools are some of the best schools in the entire world. And I know you know that, but I wanted to reiterate, like, all of you will be coming out with this unbelievable resume already from your getting in and partaking and being a Columbia student or a Barnard student or a GS student. And so it's like, to me, it sort of feels like there's, I know that I'm not in necessarily in like a design role, but I know that recruiters look and that, they're interested in your portfolio, of course, they're interested in your skill set and what you have to offer, but are you someone you want to be on a team with? Are you somebody that you can have these kind of worldly discussions with about changing the world, about, what you've studied? And I think you all will come in with this incredibly well-rounded skill set. I just wanted to reiterate that, because I think, yes, there's Parsons, yes, there's other schools, but my gosh, like what an incredible education you will come out with. So I'm happy to talk more about that, but I just wanted to offer that. I think the other thing is to echo what Aleksei and many others have said. It's about connections. It's about, being able, but I feel like to me, it's always been like, I want to reach out and I don't care about getting the job. I want to just hear your story. That's what I've always asked. I always ask, what's your story? What's your path to your current role? How did you go from, A to B to Z? Like that's so cool. And some people, it's pretty formulaic, but in my case, for instance, it's not as firm. It's a little bit of a zigzag, right? And so I would, Perrin's doing it. Like I would always sort of say, framing that, that intrigue in the person, and not necessarily making it transactional. This is like career advice in general, and take it or leave it. But it really, to me, has always been about not just like, a connection, a networking checkbox. It's like, can I build the relationship with this person? Because I have a genuine interest to actually learn about their lives. And then let's translate that. And maybe that translates down the road into, my job at Nike was years in the making of just me calling the same person up and just keeping a conversation going. And finally, when a role opened up, I was there. And so I'll just offer that. I think I went off script a little bit, Perrin, or off question, but I just wanted to offer that as well. I'm cognizant of time, so I'll stop, but there's my take on it.
Oh, that's beautiful. I will also echo your point. Being at the design studio, we saw design in a lot of contexts. We helped the public health school. We were at the law school some weeks. We were at SIPA a lot, engineering.
Yeah.
We never got, did we get dental? I don't know if we got the dental school.
I think right at the end, snuck in a dental session, which.
Ooh, medical we did.
That was like the one thing we couldn't get. We got like all the other schools except for dental, and I think at the end we did anyway. So no biggie.
Yeah, I definitely think that design can fit in so many contexts, and we just wanted to echo that. Everyone start typing some questions in the chat. Bring them in, throw them up to specific people or to the whole group. Maybe panelists, if you want to start answering some of those in chat, if we get a bunch of them just in case, or if it's to one person specifically, maybe you can answer in chat. Surbhi, I wanted to hear a little bit more from you. I was wondering if you would have any advice that you would tell your younger self about breaking into this very multidisciplinary field. Like, not a lot of people come into school knowing, oh, PM exists, and it's the same for design. I guess having graduated now and had some time outside of Columbia, what would you tell like your younger Columbia self going into the real world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. Like, I still feel like I don't have a full 100% grasp of my job and all of the things that are expected and things like that, right? Like, it takes time. And I started my job last year, early September. And so I'm not really at that year mark yet. And I think the biggest thing I've actually had to understand or force myself to get is that product management and design falls exactly into the same category. You don't learn everything that you're like going to be doing on the job at school. Actually, like almost very little of it did I learn. I learned a lot of really great concepts, and quite frankly, I think most of the applicable concepts that I use in my job, I learned in Lydia's class, because a lot of things related to prototyping and the user research and things like that, like I learned that. But otherwise, like I didn't learn a lot of things that I think about every single day on my job. And so that, I think, is one of the most important things, is like you need to come in with a sense of vulnerability, but also this huge like hunger to learn and be like, okay, like, you know, give it to me, like tell me everything, like be okay with being wrong. I think I had such almost like an ego in a sense at the beginning, where I was like, I can't be wrong, like I need to, like I know the answer to this. I would like try to respond to everything, and I was like, I'm still learning, and people know that I'm like 2 days out of college. Like, I'm the baby around here. Like, I don't need to be the person who knows everything when there's a dude that's worked here for 25 years sitting right next to me, you know? And like, I think that was like the biggest exercise for me. Like, like, I need to make sure that I'm taking every step to like learn, to ask a lot of really good questions, to like, see the people around me as mentors as opposed to like people who I'm competing with, because how do you compete with someone who's like many years ahead of you? So, I think that was a pretty valuable exercise or thought process for me. But yeah, I guess does that really answer your question?
No, that's so important. I've just started full-time recently, and
Yeah.
really relate. It's like there are so many experts, and you have to be hungry to grow and hungry to learn. And it's like you climb up this ladder at Columbia and you think you're at the top, and then you start full time and you are at the very
bottom.
We've got some great questions coming in. All right, Arthi is asked, what experiences or programs would you recommend getting into at Columbia for getting into design or the PM community, besides design at Columbia, of course? I'm gonna punt this to Sharon because she has been super involved in the community and has founded an initiative within the community. Do you want to take on some different parts of the community that you're involved with?
Yeah, sure. So this is related to what Perrin actually started, which is the UX Design Lab at Columbia. So that's just a couple of students. We all just gathered like once a week, and we were working on design sprints like during the semester. We had a lot of like bonding moments. It was just a really nice small community, kind of similar to design at Columbia, but I definitely think it's really different because it was in person, and it was like a small group of us that were just really passionate about design. That was definitely like one of my favorite experiences at Columbia so far. So I would definitely recommend everyone to do the UX Design Lab, which I believe is called Hue now. And also for getting into design, I mentioned that I took the human-centered design class with Professor Harry West. I would definitely recommend that. I also recommend just like taking some sort of like visual design or architecture class. I've really loved my architecture classes, and a lot of them have been actually really similar to like design sprints, where they'll give us like a problem about like sustainability and tell us to like create some sort of product for it, like not even necessarily like buildings, just like it was very much similar to human-centered design. So that was really cool. So definitely human-centered design, like architecture, visual arts, if you're interested in that. I know there's also the human factors class that Aleksei was mentioning. Those are like 3 classes, I guess I would recommend, and the UX Design Lab.
Aleksei, did you want to hop on?
Yeah, I want to add something to this. Besides human-centered design and innovation class, I also took design for social innovation that offered by SIPA. And it was my second class that used like human-computer approach, or like human approach to a problem. And actually we got better by the second class. So at design for social innovation, my team actually had a team of 3. We, on the first day, we kind of split it up, who's responsible for what. So we had one PM person, we had UX designer, and I was UX researcher. So we kind of dedicated this task to each other, but also we worked as a group. So someone mentioned a question, how can I get more PM experience? I think classes, the one we already mentioned, you're most likely going to be working on a team. So I would say maybe first week, try to create some ground rules, also see who wants to do what on your team and maybe get more experience at. Maybe someone want to explore more design and they want to work the entire semester learning about Figma and maybe accessibility, trying to bring accessibility into the project. So it's really on you to decide what you want to do by taking that class. And you should definitely take the initiative to just talk to other students and decide who wants to do what. But in the end, you will come as a group and you will help each other and you will learn new skills.
I definitely will echo working in groups is so important, especially for being hired. This kind of ties into a question we had in the chat. I'm just trying to scroll up from Dorothy around our designers not valued as much as engineers in tech companies since design may not be their core competencies. This comes into we all work as groups, even in the tech world, even in any sort of professional space. And everyone on the team is given equal value. In tech, a lot of times it's a engineer / tech lead, a product manager, and a designer. And at least in my experiences, they're all paid very similarly. They all have equal kind of hold over the decision. Like if the PM and Eng want to go one way and design another, you're probably going to go the PM and Eng way. But if you and the PM are on the same side as a designer, Eng is going to have to do it. So I see Surbhi nodding her head. If you want to say a little thing about that. But working on teams is one of the most important skills, and really look for that in your extracurriculars and your coursework to get that real world experience.
Oh yeah, totally echoing everything you said. Like, actually, I think what's really interesting about that 3-person dynamic with like the Eng, the PM, and the designer is that everyone has different responsibilities, right? So there are certain things that each person brings to the table and they're valued for those things. And so no one is kind of considered less than, because think about it, like everyone has a vast experience or a lot of knowledge in what they're specializing in, right? So I will oftentimes, or I would, in most cases, never try to tell the designer how to design something, because that designer actually has a lot of experience with, designing systems like that. And I certainly wouldn't tell the engineer how they're going to code something up. That's not my territory at all. And so people are bringing different things to the table. And I think there's a lot of mutual respect for what that person is bringing and how they're contributing to the overall project or the overall product that, you're working to deliver. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal, right? Whether that's like monetization, growth, whatever it may be for the product, we're all working towards the same thing. And so, I totally echo that. I think people are really valued very equally in these roles.
So, well, we are at 7. Oh my God, it just turned 7. I wanted to do a little clap for all of our amazing panelists who came out to spend a whole hour with us. All their info, like you should be able to look them up because they're all at Columbia. Just type their name into Gmail, probably if you want to hit them up. Do you want to go next slide, Laura? We just want to say thank you to the panelists, but thank you to everyone that participated in the summer, was super active in our Slack channel, made this a phenomenal 6-week experience. Like we said, this was a prototype. We had no clue if we were going to have like 4 people or like, now we have like 500 people on the Slack, and we had 10 amazing prezos. Like we had 50 of you here today for those final prezos. So it has just been amazing to see all of you grow and learn and slay it, especially like being Columbia and having this little design community. So I just want to say thank you to the panelists. Thank you to everyone that participated for really bringing your whole selves to this community so far this summer. It's been so beautiful to watch.
Yay. And for anyone who was really excited by anything that we kind of chatted about today, or any of the projects, session 2 structure is out. There's a link right here. I'll be sending out the deck shortly after this call, so you can check out the session 2 structure. It's much more team-based, so we were just chatting about teams. You'll be able to hone in on those collaboration and team building skills, really hone in on your design skills, work on a few projects rather than just one over 6 weeks, and then finish off session 2 with either completely building your portfolio or completely revamping it over the course of a weekend sprint. But yeah, just want to echo Perrin in saying thank you to our amazing panelists, to everyone who participated in session 1, and look forward to session 2.
Yes. Also send us feedback on the session 2 plan. We're still iterating. Tell us all your thoughts and feedback.
Definitely.
Is that it?
Well, shall we stop? Shall we end the call? Does anyone want to stop and chat?
I'm here to chat a little longer if anyone wants to stick around, but panelists, feel free to peace out. You have your evening, go eat some dinner. Again, thank you so much. We'll stay on the Zoom, some of the DSC team, in case you guys have any lingering questions for like a minute or two.
Bye. Thank you for inviting.
Thanks, Aleksei.
Thanks, Aleksei.
Okay, I do have a question, but it's mostly about like your personal portfolio. Like my team, like none of us really made one because we were collaborating.